Welcome to the podcast, everyone. Today we have a special guest for the Zōk Relief community. This is someone who has become a friend of mine. His name is Anders Olsson. He's from Sweden, and he has a very, very interesting, colorful background that I think a lot of people can relate to is as far as kind of our journey in life, where we start out and we have, for some reason, all these hoops to go through. Anders began pursuing entrepreneurship and business at a young age and was building success, and eventually sold the company and was left stressed. Was trying to kind of figure out his purpose, figure out the role that he was supposed to play as kind of the fulfillment of life kind of vanished and things kind of felt hollow. And through this process of going inside and really going down to the core fundamentals as a human, specifically breath, he was able to find himself. And I know, Anders, you can obviously give a much better intro on your background, but through kind of, I would say maybe a midlife crisis, trying to understand who you truly are and kind of your meaning and purpose, and to find that fulfillment in that spark each day. You found the power of breath and found the power of restoring really who you are, being able to go back to your true essence through breath, through presence, and through connecting to the body and calming the body down, quieting that inner voice that we all have that can just spin out of control sometimes, which just sounds like you had a lot of that in your earlier years, until you really kind of had this pivotal moment where the power of breath completely transformed your life and transformed your career. And you went to the extent of selling your home and using the funds from your home to pursue a career in becoming a world-renowned breath work coach, expert, and impacting the entire world through this work. So it's so great to be interviewing you today and to kind of talk about the power of breath and how people can reclaim their health, reclaim their well-being. And as Zōk Relief stems and kind of hinges on migraines and headaches, this is just kind of the tip of the iceberg. This is from my experience of dozens and dozens of doctors. Migraines and headaches are 9 times out of 10 a symptom of some underlying disequilibrium within the body. And for me, it really, as I found the Zōk device, started using that, and then I kind of caught this momentum where I started feeling better and I started feeling less stressed. It was really when the stress started to decrease was when I started to feel alive again. I started to feel like I could actually enjoy each day and actually enjoy getting out of bed because I wasn't in as much pain. And if we want to lower stress, it's through our breath. I mean, breath is the most key, core, fundamental asset, tool, gift that we have to be able to lessen that pressure, to be able to kind of reset the entire nervous system, to have less disequilibrium, less headaches, less migraines, less anxiety, OCD, whatever it might be. So anyways, it's so great to be talking with you here today, and would love to kind of tell everyone here your story and kind of start from where it all began.
Yeah, I think you covered most of it, Spencer. So I started off as an entrepreneur importing computers actually from Taiwan in my early 20s, and built a company. And then I didn't, as you said, I felt hollow. There was something missing, chasing money. I thought that was the thing in life. But when I had acquired some, I realized it wasn't. And this inner stress that had followed me more or less my entire life since I was a child, that didn't go away. And when I had sold my company, that's when I decided to switch career and um, learning how more about our body, how we react in different situations, to how we eat and sleep and work and think and exercise and all of that. And in 2009, I came across a book about breathing, how to swap asthma for life. I didn't have any problems with asthma, but um the book was about breathing, and I immediately, when I applied the techniques, I immediately felt a sense of calm. Actually something that I've been longing for, searching for my entire life. And it didn't take long before I decided that this should be my new thing. I formed the conscious breathing concept, and I decided to become the world's leading expert on breathing at the time, which means, in my view, that I dig down deeply in every single research report I could find, or book I could read, or course I could take, or exercise I could do. So, and I'm still this is now 14 years ago, and I'm still very curious about the subject because I'm still learning actually. It's, of course, our breath is there to be taken care of automatically. It's an automatic process that comes from our brainstem, just like digesting food or the heartbeat. So is our breath. But if we want to affect the different things in our body, like our heart or our brain or our digestion or our immune system, it's not easy to do it by our thoughts or via other means. But turning to our breath, that's a great tool actually to affect. If you change, if I start to breathe fast and shallow through my mouth, it will have an impact, almost a direct impact on my heart, on my brain, on basically all the processes in my body. And that is actually how most of us breathe in today's fast paced society. Not necessarily the way I just demonstrated, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but in that direction, a kind of a hidden form of hyperventilation. And since we take about 1,000 breaths an hour, over time, that will have a huge impact. It will slowly take us down and impact our health negatively. So, what I teach, the conscious breathing concept, is basically to help you understand that your breathing is a reflection of your autonomic nervous system. Whether you are pushing hard on the gas pedal or if you're pushing on the brake and get to the state of relaxation and recovery. And what we have found is that most people need help to wind down, to relax and recover. So what you then do is basically just do the opposite of what I demonstrated. If you're breathing through your mouth, if you're breathing fast and shallow, if you're holding your breath, if you're breathing noisy, like do different kind of sounds, those are all breaths. That means that you are more in a state of fight flight. And if you want to change that, you just do the opposite. Close your mouth, breathe low and slow, activating your diaphragm, your most important breathing muscle, and breathing rhythmically and quiet. So it's super simple, the theory. The challenge is, of course, to apply it in our daily life when, a text message, or we watch the news, or an action movie, or something else happens.
That's amazing. I love how these big problems in life can be solved by something so simple. That's really what I've experienced is,
Hmm.
we experience anxiety or headaches or migraines or depression. And really at the root of all this is something very simple, but to change that pattern, to change that neurological rut in the brain, it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of work because I mean, you're having to retrain the brain, right? Because
Yes,
this
but
is
it
all
doesn't.
subconscious.
Yeah, sorry, please go ahead.
I was just saying this is all subconscious in our day-to-day lives. I mean, 99% of our breathing, unless we're sitting down and intentionally counting our breaths and intentionally trying to
Yeah.
do that pattern and that frequency, our brain is going to be running at a pace that it's been programmed to kind of operate from. Is that right?
Yeah, so indeed, you can use your breath as a tool to affect your brain and heart, etc. But I just want to say that it's not necessarily that the breathing is the root cause. It could be that you smell something, and then that will trigger a stress within you, or you
Mm.
go to see your boss, and that will trigger a stress, or you cross the street, or whatever it is with you that triggers some kind of stress, and that stress will be reflected in your breath. So that's the key, that the breath is always a reflection of our mental, emotional, and physical state. So the easy thing to realize that is if I'm out jogging, for example, my breath will definitely be different compared to if I'm sitting in the sofa. So
Can we, if we see our boss, if we see kind of, if we enter these situations that will trigger us, if we wake up and we're conscious again, and then maybe for most of us we have that instant stress or anxiety response, or depression response, where we're awake again, we have to go through the same mundane, day filled with challenges. Is there a way to, and then from that trigger, maybe our heart beats faster, our brain kind of starts spinning.
hmm.
If we practice intentionally conscious breathing, if we do that multiple times per day, is it possible to kind of retrain the brain so that when we enter a stressful situation where we get triggered by the environment or by our thoughts, our brain can actually become more resilient in keeping that temperate kind of middle of the road pattern where it doesn't start hyperventilating and it keeps that diaphragmatic breathing going? Is that something that people that
Yes,
we as humans can do?
absolutely.
Okay.
If we think about it, if we do something often enough, we will establish new habits, both for good and for bad. So
Right.
if I'm a bit stressed out too often for too long, I will establish stressed breathing habits. And the opposite is also true. So if I want to change that stressed state and start to breathe consciously, low and slow and rhythmically. So if we think about these, about 1,000 breaths we take each hour. So if I'm slowly starting to change a few of those, maybe one or two or five breaths per hour, that means that we will start slowly embarking on a new journey where we establish new breathing habits. So that is the whole idea. This automatic process, we go into it and try to affect it, and then over time, it will work for us, not against us.
Right, right. And then we can, and it sounds like we can change the patterns and the kind of the neurology of our brain. Is that right?
Yeah, and studies confirm this. I mean, I have written a book, the Conscious Breathing book, and there are a lot of studies referring to one aspect is what happens in your body when you breathe. Another aspect is the link between different health issues, for example, asthma and panic,
Mhm.
depression, heart issues, and this activity breathing that we do too often and for too long. And there are also studies showing that when you change your breathing habits, when you retrain those, they will have a lasting effect.
What would you say is the most shocking piece of data that you found through all of your studies that maybe the Zōk Relief viewers that would maybe be shocking for them? That could be any kind of data or information through your studies, through your own, your own, just kind of path of collecting data and seeing people with certain illnesses or,
Mm.
certain, just health challenges that has shocked you the most with all of your research and all the data that you've collected over the years?
Oh, yeah, that's interesting. I come to think of One actually, she's a former colleague. She had severe health issues, and she got so much help and relief from conscious breathing that she applied for working in her office, and she did for a few years. And she had 27 years of severe migraine to the point where she was laying in the toilet, coughing up blood and crying because she was in such pain. And by just starting to applying these simple techniques, understand the importance of nasal breathing, taping her mouth shut at night, and using this the relaxator that helps achieve a low and slow rhythmic breathing. She went from severe migraines many times per week to basically none at all. So that's one aspect. I remember one doctor, he had high blood pressure and he was only in his 30s and he didn't want to take medication because of the side effects. And he just closed his mouth and prolonged the exhale slightly. And within 2 minutes, which is very fast, but that was also because he was so young. But within 2 minutes, his body responded and his blood pressure went down from 140 to 120. And own personal experience is the realization that we have so many blockages, so many limitations in our minds. So in my world, it was nasal breathing during physical activity. And when I started, I could never have dreamed that I should be able to do high intense physical activity with closed mouth. And when my son challenged me and I actually tried to push myself, it didn't take long before I was out running, doing interval training. Now I don't do it much these days at all. I mainly go out for a slow run, but just a realization that, wow, it is actually possible. And then I did a study a few years ago, 10 CrossFit athletes. If you've ever been to a CrossFit box and see them exercises, most time they do the exercises on time. So it's a competition. Almost every workout is a competition. So everyone gives everything they have, and the level of mouth breathing is severe. So the study we did, we had them breathe like normal, which meant this mouth breathing one occasion, and they did a series of tests. And the next week they did the same tests, but this time they had their mouth taped and so they could only breathe through their nose. And I was shocked that they were able to perform almost exactly at the same level with nasal breathing only, and despite their they had extremely little experience of doing nasal breathing. So that was really interesting.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So we are replacing the quantity with quality, because this forceful breathing is extremely inefficient.
And explain the nasal breathing. What's the importance of breathing through your nose then compared to breathing through the mouth? What are the key differences, and maybe what's the science behind nasal breathing versus mouth breathing? You talked about the sleep tape, and that's become a huge thing as a lot of podcasters have kind of touched on this hot topic of breath work, of breathing, of reclaiming your health through breath, and taping your mouth shut at night, of being intentional through the day to breathe through your nose rather than through your mouth. Help us understand the importance and just kind of the science behind the nasal breathing.
Yeah. So this is our little product, the sleep tape. I think we launched it in 2013, and I think it was actually the world's first product aimed at taping your mouth shut at night.
Oh, wow.
But what the nose does is that it warms the air and moistens it, because in the lungs, it's body temperature and it's 100% moist. We have about 80% water in our lungs. So our lungs are made up of 80% water. That is huge. And the air we inhale obviously doesn't contain as much water and is usually not body temperature. So the nose prepares the air for the lungs. And we are talking about 10 to 20,000 liters of air in a single day that we inhale. Studies, researchers here at Karolinska Institute in Sweden, they say that we inhale up towards 100 billion particles in a single day. And a lot of those particles, which includes virus and bacteria, fungi, and other particles, the majority is trapped in our nose. So the nose is an extremely good particle filter. And it's like a very efficient heat exchanger, because the air is warmed and humidified, and the bacteria is cleaned. And then also in the nose, in the sinus cavities, we have a production of a gas called nitric oxide, which helps, is antibacterial, antifungal, and antiviral. So virus and bacteria doesn't like NO. So when we inhale through the nose, the inhaled air is exposed to nitric oxide, and the NO follows the air down into the lungs, help keeps the airways open. And also the nose has the ability to create a laminar airflow. If you want to push air through a kind of a tube, like our airways, they are just tubes, and the laminar airflow is then what you want. So if we compare all of these things with the mouth, first it creates a turbulent airflow. So the air, it's chaotic. They coincide with each other and makes it harder for the air to reach the lungs. So also it's cold and dry, full of all these particles, making the airways irritated and inflamed. And when we have something that is inflamed, it will swallow. So it will be harder for the air to pass through the airways. So all of these leads to that our breath ends up higher up in our chest, which is the hallmark for stress and activity breathing. And it leads to inefficient oxygenation, because most of the alveoli, the lung sacs where the gas exchange takes place, we inhale oxygen, and the oxygen is used to produce energy efficiently, and then the carbon dioxide that is also produced in our body is transferred from the blood in these lung sacs, in the alveoli, to the lungs, and we exhale it. So this gas exchange, most of those alveoli, they are situated in the lower part of the lungs. So when we breathe higher up on our chest, it's very inefficient. So we need to compensate. It's similar to driving your car with one foot on the parking brake. You have to compensate by pushing harder on one foot on the brake, or the parking brake slightly engaged. So you have to compensate by pushing harder on the gas pedal. So that's what we do. This shallow breathing automatically leads to faster breathing, and then we are caught in a vicious stress cycle.
So from my understanding of the brain, of oxygenation, it sounds like breathing through the nose could lower brain fog, something that I've suffered from ruthlessly for a long period of time, trying to focus at the computer, focus reading a book, studying, working, having a conversation. It sounds like the more that we breathe through our nose, the more that we're oxygenating, and the more that we're just efficiently operating as a human physical body, which would make sense in that our brains are going to fire better. There's going to be less inflammation. There's going to be, which if there's less inflammation, there's less stress, there's less anxiety, there's less the full 9 yards of mental health challenges, brain fog. Is that accurate? Could you say that?
You could say that. I mean, if we take a step back and ask ourselves the question, why in the world are we so dependent on breathing? Why do we only survive a few minutes if we stop breathing? Well, it's because oxygen. Most people know that. I would say all people know that. But then if we ask the question, why is oxygen so important? Not that many people know that, actually. And it is important to produce energy. Our body is in huge need for energy. And our most important nutrient is oxygen. We may only think about nutrients as the food we eat, but we usually use carbs and fat and convert those into energy. But when we convert the food we eat into energy, we can do that in two ways, with oxygen and without oxygen. And without oxygen, when you train and exercise, that is called anaerobic energy production, meaning energy production without oxygen. And people that train, they want to avoid that at any cost, because then it's associated with buildup of lactic acid and the performance drops very quickly. So the reason why we die if we stop breathing is because we can't oxygenate our cells enough, so they can't produce energy efficiently, because the anaerobic energy production can only extract about 6% of the available energy in the food we eat, while energy extraction with oxygen can extract up to 100%. So that's the huge difference. So that's why we have to understand, whether it's performing at work or being able to having a good conversation or performing as a sports person, we have to try and understand what is efficient oxygenation and how can we achieve that. And the expression here, less is more, suits perfect. Just like our car doesn't go better just because we give it more fuel, we don't oxygenate our body better just because we take in more oxygen. On the opposite, there will be imbalances in the body that will actually constrict the airways and the blood vessels, leading to poorer oxygenation, despite the fact that we take in more oxygen.
That's fascinating. This is a lot of information that I personally didn't know, and I think a lot of people aren't aware of, and it's really helpful to learn this and be aware of this so that we can really change our habits and change our life, to be able to retrain our entire body in the way that we obtain oxygen, in the way that our cells are firing. And I think it's easy to overlook just these simple things, and someone coming up and saying, oh, it's just your breath, it's just, you need to tape your mouth shut at night so that you can get deeper sleep, so that you can wake up feeling more refreshed, less anxious, more energized, which will just kind of create this cascade effect of higher well-being. And then being aware throughout the day. You brought up the relaxator. Why don't you go into that that little invention that you've come up with, and tell people how many people have received that across the world, because I know it's quite a remarkable number. And yeah, tell us some more about that.
Yeah, this is the relaxator, right? I think there are more than 100,000 people that use it now, and it's very simple, and that's the whole idea. It's very simple to use, very lightweight, and you just set a resistance of your choice, like this, and then you put it in your mouth. You hold it with your lips for optimum relaxation, and you inhale through the nose, and then just exhale through the relaxator like this. And you said earlier, when concentrating, you may experience brain fog, and I don't think that I have necessarily had the same problem, but I've had this stress, so it has been a bit hard to focus and concentrate. So if I've had those deadlines, those are the times when, oh, I need a coffee, I need a chocolate bar, I need to call my best friend, I may at some point even need to go, clean the toilet or whatever. My mind makes up to take me away from what I am supposed to do. And my conclusion, after having used this for a long time now, is that the brain gets stressed out. The brain needs a break when it is deprived of oxygen, and it uses glucose and oxygen. And the most important is oxygen. And when we do, like most people do, when we sit there and concentrate, we switch between being a bit stressed and breathing a little bit too fast, or we stop breathing, we hold our breath. So we switch between the two, and both leads to less oxygenation of the brain, leads to a stressed brain, because if there is anything that the brain is watching out for, it is our oxygen levels. So the brain will be more alert if it can't predict, if it can't be sure, if it can't be certain that this body will give me the oxygen I need. So if we shift between fast breathing and holding our breath, the brain will be on continuous alert, checking for, okay, is there any oxygen coming? And if not, then it will tell you we need a break in order to get out of that state. So what I experience more than anything, if I have a tight deadline today or in other occasions as well, I don't necessarily need to have a tight deadline, but when I put it in my mouth, it helps me to achieve this rhythmic and low and slow diaphragmatic breathing, ensuring a steady supply of oxygen to my brain. So honestly, I can be like a machine. I can put this in my mouth and forget about time and space and eating and everything. And 6 hours later, oh, maybe it's time to take a break. I'm not saying you should do that, but just as an illustration, how it really can help you to stay focused if that is what you need.
That's amazing. So it sounds like it's the low and the slow breaths that the relaxator is facilitating. It's forcing
Mhm.
you to, depending on the tension that you create,
Yeah.
and maybe how strong your lungs are and how strong of a breath workout you want to do, will force you into that deep diaphragmatic breathing, which is the whole goal, because that's what oxygenates the brain, the blood, and helps us to achieve that state of calm more efficiently.
Yes. Yes, I agree. But having said that, you don't have to do like I did, started off in the beginning, thought that it was a competition and figure that, okay, the smaller hole I have open, the better my breathing is, the better I will oxygenate my body. What I didn't think of was probably that I had a wrinkle between my eyes and was blue in the face and tensing up in this chase for the optimum breath until I realized that it is about relaxation. And usually relaxation and the performance attitude doesn't go hand in hand. So once I realized that, I figured it's not really about having a very small hole open. It's about finding your rhythm, a relaxed rhythm. Our lungs, they are delicate tissue. It's not like going to the gym and work out our biceps. They work quite differently. So it's about relaxation, moving the air in and out with minimum effort. That's the key. Like a referee in a football game, if we don't see or hear the referee, then it's the perfect referee. It should just be there invisible. It should not interfere with the game. No one comes to look at the referee. It's similar to a breath. It's just, it should be taken care of by itself. And that's how I use it. Then I can put it in my mouth and not feeling that I'm doing any breathwork training. It just assists me to maintain this rhythmic and low and slow breathing. Do you see what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And you have some pretty big endorsers behind this.
yeah,
James Nestor, I think some
yeah.
people may have heard of him. Ben Greenfield, a big biohacking figure, uh, like the number one. What would you call him? A biohacker? A
I think that's what he called himself. Yeah, a biohacker. Yeah,
Okay, yeah, and a whole host of other German scientists, Stanford, doctors and scientists and people all over the world that have endorsed your consciousbreathing.com philosophy and the amazing inventions that you've come up with, which I've been able to fortunately um, get a hold of now and begin implementing into my daily routines. And they truly work. They are simple, and it's really just all about creating that routine, which I've noticed a difference. And when I'm at my desk and I'm working and I plop in the relaxator, it's just kind of signals, like when I put that in my mouth, I know, like, okay, my body is going to go into a state of relaxation. It's going to start kind of modulating and balancing out. through these deep, slow breaths. And the more that I've practiced this on my own, there's definitely less stress. I mean, more oxygen, more blood. I mean, I can visualize it in my brain. There's more calm, there's more peace, there's less panic. And again, it's so simple, yet so many people, we go to the ends of the earth to try to find some silver bullet, I feel like, to lower our stress, which I think most people, in the grand scheme of things, in the entire world, is what we battle with the most, is stress and managing stress. And
Yeah.
then the next extreme is anxiety. And this simple tool that you've developed, along with your philosophies and the whole kind of step by step process that you've developed over the past few decades, is what can connect us back to enjoying life. Um,
Yeah.
it's
So if we think about it, what differs a person in ultimate relaxation, deep meditation, and a person in the ultimate stress, a panic attack? Well, it's not food or sleep or exercise. It's breathing. The person in a state of panic is breathing fast and shallow. If that person comes to the hospital, may she or he may get a bag to breathe in and out through to calm down the breathing, while the person in deep relaxation and meditation is breathing low and slow.
it's simple. It's
It
it's
is
simple,
really.
yet we don't do it. We don't do it. And I think for me, it's been, oh, that's too easy. This
Yeah.
problem of anxiety or stress or migraines or headaches that I've dealt with,
Yeah.
it's so big, it's so large. So intuitively, I need something in equal or greater proportion to that magnitude as far as the solution goes to solve that problem. So I need some big complex infusions with a shaman, with all, sorts of whatever, right, to crack the code. But from all of your studies and the hundreds of thousands of people you've impacted, and from what I've studied from, all of the work you've put out there into the internet and the entire world, it's very, very simple, and it's something that we can all begin doing on a daily basis and begin to change the world. Because if we're operating from a place of calmness, from a place of harmony, we're going to make better choices. We're going to treat people better. We're going to just have a higher quality engine to operate from and create more positive impact.
Yeah. That's actually our tagline: change your breath, change your life, change the world. That's exactly how I view it as well. And just when it comes to making a change, we have this tendency to think, as you said, it has to be complicated.
Right.
Everyone else can do it, but I can't.
Expensive.
It's too hard. It's too difficult. But just a great example, I think, is my favorite example. If you look at the top three tennis players on the male side in history, that's Rafael Nadal, it's Roger Federer, and Novak Djokovic. What do they have in common? Well, all three of them, they have lost during their career, all balls that they have played, they have lost 45% of the balls they have played, meaning that they lose almost every second ball. They just
Mm,
win a little bit more. They win 55%. So the difference between winning and losing, between
mm,
health and poor health, is not really a huge giant step. It's
mm.
small steps that you repeat, and then after some time you will be able to reap the benefits. I think that's really important to understand, that it's not about uh, going to the moon. It's achievable. It's possible for every single one of us to not necessarily, reach the happily ever after state, but to get happier, to get more energy, to get slightly better sleep, to get more harmony.
It's the compound effect of
Yeah,
small 1% incremental improvements in all these different categories in our life that eventually over time lead to a completely different life. Maybe
yeah,
we're, I mean, everything is abundant. Our mental health, our relationships, our income, our energy levels, and it starts with our breath, is what I'm hearing, and just the movement of breath work. And Wim Hof, obviously he's in your neck of the woods out there, and um, is he in Norway?
He's in Netherlands.
No, okay, Netherlands. Okay, um, so
But
pretty
for
close to
a
speaking.
US person, it's not that far.
Right, right, relatively speaking.
Yeah.
Um, and just how powerful, or how big of a movement he's created in his hyperventilation, and as a completely different aspect of conscious breathing, which is something that's more doable, because I've done Wim Hof breathing, and I'll tell you, it's hard to create that habit to go lay on the ground for 15, 20, 30 minutes. It's a full body exercise. You feel incredible after. um, but just this whole push for breath. James Nestor has exploded with all the podcasts he's been on, Dr. Huberman, and um, you know, it's cool to see all the studies and the science, Stanford, Harvard, Yale, all these big institutions backing all of these claims,
Yeah.
and really shedding the light on how critical this simple core fundamental um, thing that we're given, breathing, that we have to do to survive, um, is for people. And it would make sense because it's the number one core foundation of life, oxygen. um, if we just do something so small to tweak it, it can make the world of a difference in
Yeah.
our well-being and our
We
health.
live from one breath to the next, basically.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. No, this is so cool to hear this, and it's inspiring to hear the stories and the lives that have been changed. And just kind of real quick before we start to wrap things up, with that migraine lady, again, most people that might be listening here have dealt with migraines, have dealt with crushing headaches, and someone who's suffered for 2 years straight with just a level of pain that I can't even explain.
Mm.
What did that lady do with the 26-year migraine case? Was it kind of maybe walk us through what migraine and headache sufferers can do today? Is it just maybe one round of breathing? Is it 3 times a day? Like what are the action items you would give someone if they came to you today and saying, I've been suffering from migraines and headaches? Um, I'm inspired by the story of this lady who was able to essentially cure, I would say, her migraines
Yeah.
through your philosophies. What items would you give the listeners today?
So one thing they're more than welcome to do is to sign up to our Conscious Breathing Foundation course, which will start, I think, on August 24th. That's a 6 weeks course that helps you take your breathing to the next level. But you don't necessarily need to take a course, right? The idea, all different health issues have usually many different aspects. So one solution that works for one person doesn't necessarily work for another. But one explanation why we get tensions in our head and we get migraine and headaches is because the shallow breathing, that means that our diaphragm, our most important breathing muscle, isn't working as it's supposed to be. So then other muscles have to step in, which includes the muscles in the neck and throat. They have to lift, instead of the diaphragm lifting the rib cage on every inhale, these muscles have to lift the rib cage, and the rib cage is quite heavy. So they are not designed for this. The diaphragm is the only muscle, together with the heart, that works around the clock. Those two muscles, they work from we are born to we die. Other muscles, they rest now and then. So these muscles in the neck and throat, they're not designed to be constantly active. So over time, they will get overworked and tense, and that because they go up in the back of the head, right? So that can create tensions, and could be one aspect leading to headache. And so you ask for a solution, what to do. Well, taping your mouth shut at night is a great advice. Doing
Mm,
physical activity with closed mouth. Those were two things that this woman did
mm,
that suffered 27 years of severe migraine. And then also paying attention to your daily breathing habit. Maybe you can set your alarm on your mobile every hour or every second hour or 3 or 4 times per day. And when the phone goes off, you turn to your breath and you close your mouth and take 3, 4, or 5 prolonged exhale. You can, preferably when you close your mouth, you put the tongue in the roof of your mouth. That's where it's supposed to rest. And when you prolong your exhale, that's when you reach a state of relaxation. If I'm exaggerating a little bit, this inhale is taking you in the direction towards fight flight, and the exhale takes you in the direction towards parasympathetic. So usually when we are stressed out, when we have pain, migraines, etc., we have spent more time in fight flight than we're supposed to do. So we want to shift to parasympathetic, and prolonging the exhale is an easy way to do that. So close your mouth, prolong the exhale, and it's important to find your rhythm. You can think of maybe 2 or 3 on the inhale, 4 or 5 or 6 on the exhale. But again, it's not about a competition, it's about the relaxation. So find your rhythm. And you can also apply that when you do physical activity. For example, just going for a walk. You don't need to go to the gym in order to benefit from physical activity. So when you do a walk, for example, with closed mouth, you can just take more steps on the exhale to find even more of that relaxation. And of course, you can use the relaxator as well.
mhm.
So
I
those
think
are a few tips. Yeah.
that's great to hear. That's I would definitely implement these because I know the science. Again, I know the power of this, and who wouldn't want more relaxation? Who wouldn't want to continually optimize their health? Because health is the key of everything, from my experience. And if we're not feeling good, you could have everything in life, and it wouldn't matter,
True.
because what we feel right here it reflects in every aspect of what we experience and how we can experience the outside world. So
Yeah.
this has
Eh,
been. Oh, go ahead.
No. Just want to finish off by saying
Yeah.
that the your breath affects your nervous system, and if your breath doesn't work for you, you will be more dependent on other things that affect your nervous system, like coffee and soda and alcohol and cigarettes and all of that. The In my view, there is a correlation. The more stressed out my breathing, the more I need these other types of stimulants to affect my nervous system.
Right.
Yeah.
Something so simple, and yet we go to these extreme measures to try to change the nervous system, because that's all cigarettes or alcohol or drugs or coffee. That's what those things are just changing our nervous system. And so
Yeah.
if we can do that from a holistic, organic, natural, um, biological approach, then
Yeah.
I mean, how incredible is that?
Yeah, it's more rewarding for our body. It's
Right,
not our body that wants the cigarette or the alcohol. I think it's our brain, it's our nervous system, right?
right, right.
Yeah. So
This has been awesome to be able to connect and to learn more about consciousbreathing.com. Anyone that's listening, head to consciousbreathing.com to learn more about Anders and the beautiful work that he's been performing over almost a decade and a half, and also the super innovative products that he's developed. And we'll have to talk more about the future innovations that you've been developing with scientists all over Europe, and yourself and the tests and everything that you've performed with those. But really grateful for your time here, Anders, and look forward
thank
to
you for
connecting
having me,
soon.
Spencer.
Absolutely. Well, we'll talk to you here soon.
Yeah, awesome. Okay. Take care.
Thank you. Bye
Bye.
bye.
Bye.